Hi and welcome to this Tara Sharma Show Hopscotch special. We're doing a chat on women and entrepreneurs and mompreneurs, and we've got a wonderful lineup of panelists and a fantastic audience. And we have the CEO and founder of Hopscotch, Rahul. It's a pleasure doing this together.
Thank you. It's
Anything
a pleasure,
you'd like to
Tara. I think we are really looking forward to a great discussion today and a fantastic Tara Sharma Hopscotch special.
Great. So we've got this wonderful panel. We've got a great audience, including the co-founder of Facebook, Eduardo Sabrin, and his lovely wife, Elaine, and lots of other lovely, lovely guests. So let's get chatting. Welcome, all of you. Hopefully going to be a fun afternoon discussing women and entrepreneurship, mompreneurship, which of course is a very trendy term nowadays. It's also important to note that not everyone here is a mompreneur. So I think we're going to make sure that we don't just go down the mompreneur route. 5 years ago when I started my multi-platform show, the Tara Sharma Show, which I'm very happy is associating with Hopscotch for this event, I honestly had no clue what mompreneur was. And I think the term got more and more trendy over the last few years. I was interested to see that mompreneur is a neologism. Neologism is not yet a word, it's a word in the making. It's a mum who's balancing working and being with her kids. So I'd like to introduce everyone on the panel. Everyone here is very passionate about what they do. They're mompreneurs or they're women entrepreneurs. And I think there's no one who is more passionate about their own venture than themselves. So although I did do my homework, just in case, Aditya, you think I'm getting away by not having done it, I did research and I do know what everyone does and how many kids they have and what inspired them. But I think it would make more sense for everyone here if each person said a line or two about themselves and their venture and why they're here. So if you want to start.
Okay, so I'm Gayatri. I used to work with the Bank of New York some time back. I would just straight go to Knitting Nanny because I'm just so passionate and everyone just likes the story that is associated with Knitting Nanny. We are 3 generations of mothers in the family who started this business. The brand is named after my 88-year-old grandmother-in-law. She is the inspiration and I guess she's the most active member of Knitting Nanny. The second generation is Nanny's daughter and my mother-in-law. She's sitting in the audience, a chartered accountant by profession. And the youngest generation is me and my sister-in-law Aishwarya. So Aishwarya has worked with NDTV and I've worked with Bank of New York. After having kids, it was so tough to go back to your job, and I was sitting and we were just thinking what can be done, and very casually Nanny one day just mentioned, I wish I was born in this age of internet where reaching out to people is so easy. And that got me thinking, and within a week we started promoting our brand on social media. Slowly, as we did a lot of research, we realized that we are very confident about the quality that we are making. And there is no established brand in India which makes handcrafted woolens for kids. And that's when we realized that there is demand, only we will have to tap the market in a very organized manner. And we got in touch with Hopscotch. Hopscotch gave us the opportunity to reach out to the wide set of mother shoppers on their website. And that was a perfect launch pad for Knitting Nanny. So that's how we started and we are growing stronger by the day.
So that's super. Gayatri Joshi of Knitting Nanny.
Yes.
Also Rahul, you'll also get a turn after everyone introduces themselves. I could see you grinning, knowing the flow includes you speaking and you're probably wondering when. So I think after them. Love to hear your
story.
So I'm
Ashwini. I started Da Vinci Montessori about 5 years ago. We moved to Bombay about 7-8 years ago and I was a young mother at that time with a 3-month-old baby. And got to know about the bizarre world of preschools and preschool admissions. I didn't want my children to be part of that rat race and just thought something was completely off in that system. I think that's what inspired me to train myself as a teacher and start Da Vinci Montessori with 5 years. Yeah.
Super. And Ruchi who's been on our show a few times. So.
Thank you. So I'm Ruchita and I run a community for moms called First Moms Club on Facebook, and we now connect 30,000 Indian moms across the globe. Just to give you a little history of why I started, it was started essentially only for me to connect with my mommy friends And what I realized was that all the Indian moms are very similar in their background and what they do with their kids, whether they live in the US or Singapore or India. And having lived abroad, I realized that all of us connected on a similar fashion of bringing up our children. Also with nuclear setups, we didn't have joint families, we didn't have mothers and mother-in-laws at home giving us advice. So we were looking at each other, we were going to Google, and I thought this was a great way to connect. As the community grew, I realized moms found it useful. They added their mommy friends, and I think I'm the only one who's never paid Facebook to get any members. So, but yeah, so the thing is, it's essentially an online community that connects moms across the world now. And I've realized that a lot of things that the Indian moms used to miss connecting on the internet, they find it on FMC, and they bond really well. So that's where I started. And I'm a mother of 2 kids myself. So.
And I'm an FMC mom, so.
Yes, yes.
So my name's Naya Sagi. I run a company called BabyChakra. We started just over a year back. We are the fastest growing platform for young parents, primarily mums, to discover and decide on local services and to get informed on the whole process of parenting. It's a whole new journey for parents in India, given 60% of them live in nuclear families today. We're a mobile first platform. We're launching our app very soon.
Hi, I'm Anusha. I head the merchandising team at Hopscotch. I'm a mother of 2 beautiful little girls, and it's one of the things I love about my job. I usually used to shop for my children. Now I shop for children all over India, right? So it's a great job. Before I joined Hopscotch, I was in the founding team of an e-commerce company called SchoolShop. We got acquired by Hopscotch about a year ago, and Rahul sweet talked me into sort of moving over, and I haven't looked back since. And you know, I think one of the greatest joys I've had is sort of discovering and working with other women entrepreneurs as a part of the job, right? And it's been a great journey so far.
Yeah, hi, I'm Payal. I'm a designer. I make women's wear, but we recently launched exclusive line with Hopscotch for kids pre-Rakhi, and we did really well, and we're really happy with it. I have a 6-year-old son, and we've been spending a lot of time in kind of revamping the brand and taking it, and we are on a lot of online platforms, but exclusively with Hopscotch for our kids wear line.
Super. So, Rahul.
I'm Rahul, and I grew up in Bombay, went to school, the business school in the US, and joined a company called diapers.com when I graduated. It was sort of an early to mid-stage company at the time, and I ended up joining the management team there. We grew very quickly and was acquired by Amazon a few years in. And I think after the acquisition, we started to look around at different opportunities. This was back in the year 2011, where a lot of businesses in the country were building Me Too platforms similar to those that existed in the West. And I think when a light bulb went off in my head, and I realized that I had about 20 friends who had traveled halfway across the world to crash on my couch and shop for baby products in the US. And I knew that if I knew 20 moms that came to America to shop for better quality stuff at lower prices and access broader assortment, there were probably around 20 million moms in India who would also want the best for their baby. And so that's how the idea for Hopscotch took root. I think what's interesting and a strong parallelism between what we've been working towards at Hopscotch and what each of you are building is that there's so much of untapped opportunity in the Indian market. There are gaps in every single corner of the universe when we look at things here, and in many ways we're doing our own little thing to figure out how we can make life better and more meaningful for consumers in the country. So I think it's an exciting journey for all of us, and I think it's going to be a great next 5 to 10 years as we build our businesses forward.
Super. Thank you, Rahul. Now a question to the mompreneurs. I think everyone here is very, very qualified and has done all kinds of other jobs before doing what they do. When you guys, the ones who are mums, when you became mums, what were your career options then? Did you have very supportive employers, or did you have a situation where you felt like you couldn't continue? What was your situation at that point?
I can take that one. So I used to work with McKinsey & Company, a management consulting firm, great company. They were actually very supportive when I was pregnant and wanted to work with me through options. But fundamentally, management consulting, I think, is a job that requires long hours and lots of travel. I'm an A-type enough person that I want to be one of the people wanted to work with and not like do a sort of secondary role within the organization. So I think that was probably the deciding factor that led me to sort of leave and look at other options. And even though it sounds very counterintuitive, entrepreneurship at that point in time offered me the flexibility that I wanted, right? Enough time with my child as well as sort of the intellectual stimulation that I think I was looking for.
Right. Did any of you have a situation where you actually felt that you weren't getting or you wouldn't get work? Personally, I used to act in film. So when I had my babies, honestly, I stopped getting work. So I think there were, whenever people ask me, how did I think of the show or doing this? I think there are just so many factors and circumstance, situation inside desire. So did any of you face a situation where you felt you weren't getting work?
For me, I think I was in advertising, and like everybody knows, work doesn't start before 5 in the evening, right? So with a small baby at home, that's not possible. I tried going back to advertising when I had my older one 10 years ago. But it was crazy because the copywriter or nobody was ready with the brief, and the work only started at midnight, and you had to get back home to either nurse your baby or, you know, make sure that he goes to sleep. So, but luckily, because I was a graphic designer and I could freelance from home, it wasn't so bad. But yes, I just did miss the energy level that you have when you're working in an agency or working as a team, and it's just not possible to have that kind of lifestyle, have a small baby and aim to be the creative director of an agency or anything. So I had to relook, reboot, reinvent myself. And
I think that's a really good word, reinvent, and I think that's something that, I mean, my dad was an author, and shortly before he passed away, he used to say to me, because there would be days when I'd be like, oh, you know, I used to work at Accenture, I could have done this, I could have done that, but what if, and he always said to me, you know, never just sit by the phone, never stagnate, always reinvent yourself. So that's really interesting, but I'm also, it's because we seem to be, most of us, people who, there's been a passion, something that you see a need in the market, you see that, okay, I really want to do that, I see this space. Now, I'm married to an entrepreneur, and I've seen a slightly different way of going about it. I'm curious to know, like Naya, with you, because you don't have a baby and you're not a mom, did you actually think of ideas? Did you kind of list down different ideas and decide which one, the one you wanted to go with? Because I think most of us here, it was kind of, you know, just from the heart and following that passion. Yeah. And I don't think there were options. It was, yeah, exactly, but not for everyone. Yeah, so for you, what was the mother of invention?
So, you know, when I moved back to India, my idea was to start off a venture in the local services. Now, naturally, given that I'm a woman, I, you know, gravitated to talking to more women, right? And, you know, invariably, every sort of second or third woman I talked to would be a mother. And so they all voiced this, you know, really pressing need on local service discovery. Basically, from when you get pregnant to when your child is pretty young, you know, till the age of 5, you're always asking around for pediatricians and OB/GYN recommendations and play schools and daycare recommendations, right? So that really stood out to me as a pressing need and a pressing opportunity. With the advent of the smartphone and, you know, handsets being at $100 or less that give you access to the internet, more and more women are coming online, and they're, you know, one of the first port of calls is actually discovery on childcare needs and baby care needs and maternity needs, right? So for me, it really stood out as an amazing opportunity. No one has a space. It's a white space for us to really play in and be the market leader, at least in India to start off with. So that for me was
that's a really interesting point, because I think as a mom, and I think there will be people here who will probably agree, you know, having like people say, wow, you're doing such a great job feels really good, but how do you get to that next step, or do you want to get to that next step? That's something that I actually find really interesting, because being married to an entrepreneur who, touch wood, has scaled up quite well, he's always saying, but like, what's the next step? What's the next step? And there's someone in the room who actually recently said to me, and I was very touched that she said it, she said, you know what, maybe you're going at the pace you want to go. And it's an interesting thing, I think, for mompreneurs, because do you think scaling up is necessarily the way to go, or do you think it's something that you want to keep within your comfort zone and to give it that level of trust, perhaps? I don't know. So, do you want to answer that?
So, I started my first branch of Da Vinci Montessori 5 years ago, and then last year we started another branch. When I talk to people, the first question is, are you going to grow into 5 schools, 10 schools, or are you going to have a India-wide franchise? And that's not my plan, or I'm not even thinking that far. Because for me, when I think about work, there are priorities in life. My family, sort of children, come first, then does the school. And so when I factor in, when I look at locations for the preschool, I'm always thinking about, proximity to school, proximity to home, proximity to children. And I think it's a one step at a time. So I don't want to grow and just grow because I want to and it's possible to and there are opportunities there. But I want to grow in a way that I am comfortable doing it. I feel that sense of satisfaction doing justice to both roles.
And I think that's really interesting because you hear and you get so tempted by this whole investors are coming and so and so got this much money, that one got that much money. But then, you actually have to step back, especially I think as mompreneurs, and actually wonder if you want to take that jump. And I think it's, it's quite tough sometimes because, it is, yeah, please.
The scaling thing that has come up right now. So we really want to scale up, but we are making handmade products. How much am I going to scale up? Then I will have to compromise on the quality. Plus I have a very young family. I'm doing 2 jobs right now. One is my knitting nanny and second is raising I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old. So I'm going to give it its own sweet time. Let the girls grow up. So that is one thing we are looking at right now. Just take it easy.
So when all of you had really, really amazing jobs before you did what you did, what was the social stigma when you quit, or how did that go down?
So I think women have it easier in India, don't they? I mean, I have a husband who did his own startup 2 years ago, and we got really strange looks because one day he was in suits and the next day he was back to, he was in shorts and t-shirt and working out of a coffee shop. Men get really weird looks. We are very lucky, trust me. We are a privileged lot here and we should not crib because nobody will judge you for working from home, doing flexi hours because you're not expected to do it. That's the thing. So I think
the luxury of choice is something that we have.
It is a luxury of choice and we should really use it well.
But what's so interesting is, again, when I was researching, I actually found that, the reason why people get into mompreneurship isn't always just passion or putting points down or wanting to get into it. Sometimes it's need-based. So in the West, a lot of it is because childcare is so expensive and you have to work from home. So I think there's also an element of need-based mompreneurship, which may not have as much of the sort of romantic, the way we are all talking about our passion and how we're so true to our causes and all the rest of it.
The other thing is, she keeps mentioning India, which is, I want to just say something, since I lived in New York for 6 years. So, we talk about how, obviously there is a certain cultural background that Indian mompreneurs have and all that. But let me tell you one thing, like how Indian women have like this whole feeling that, we have to run the house, we have to take care of the in-laws, we have to take care, actually it's pretty universal.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. And I think nowadays, honestly, one can't even say India or somewhere else because thanks to technology and thanks to social media, the reality is that the world is much smaller. I've been really excited, frankly, to see that more than half of the comments for my show, at least half, come from all over the world. And we did an analytics thing on our YouTube channel and we found that, to my surprise, 40% is coming from the US of views. So I was like amazed, so I was like, I better get Oprah on my show now. No, but what about partners? Somebody recently said to me, you should have a co-founder. I said, my co-founder, co-producer of our kids and the show is my husband. So he's my 2 a.m. what should I do now person. But what about partners when you are looking to grow? How do you choose them? What do you look for? Have you gone that route? Are you looking to go that route? You are with Hopscotch.
I am with Hopscotch, right? So it's a little bit in the opposite side, right? I don't want to speak for Rahul. But before that, when I joined SchoolShop, my partner there, Satya, he was, he'd started earlier and then I joined him a little bit through the process. And there's a huge difference, right? From being like someone bearing the burden alone, there were now 2 of us sort of talking to each other, we were there through the highs, but more importantly through the lows, right? And the lows can be really, 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 really low, right? And I find that at Hopscotch as well, right? I mean, Rahul's effectively a single founder, but it's a great team of people that you can work with, that you can talk to, that you can sort of, they're going through everything that you're going through, right? And I think it's incredibly important. And I think there it's important to find people both like you and very different from you, so that you're able to get sort of different perspectives and people do different jobs, right? It doesn't help if everyone's out raising money or everyone's out sort of building the strategic vision of the company.
That's a very good point because I do think that at least me, I'm very honest about the fact that I think I have control issues because I've got so used to being so, I mean not in a bad way, but there's an element of the trust, but to the point that even though we'd have like a great team, say for social media and stuff, I just insist on writing every tweet, you know, which is not the best way to grow at all, but then it's just that whole dichotomy about growing and staying true to what you do.
It's very hard to sort of let go of the control, but I think to, you know, it doesn't even have to be to grow like to a very large scale, but even to grow a little bit, I think it's helpful to be able to.
And what about choosing your partners the other way? Like when you are looking at brands that are going to come on your platform and when you're curating your products, how do you actually do that? Do you think what your little girls would like, or do you kind of
all the time? And I think, you know, you could accuse Hopscotch of being a little bit more skewed towards girls than boys in terms of merchandise. Trying very, very, very hard to not, you know, sort of be biased. I think about that all the time. I think, you know, is this something I would use as a parent? There's a very high bar that I want to maintain, right? Because sort of every item that goes through, I'm like, would my child wear it? Would Aditya's child wear it? Like, would Rahul's child? Like, you know, we think about our children while we're going through the process.
But how do you feel about the difference from working for somebody and having been a founder? Is it something, like, did you have troubles adjusting to that?
Not that much. You know, it's always a change, right? So you're sort of, Rahul's a great guy. I'm not just saying that because I want to raise. Rahul's a great guy. What I love about my job is I get a lot of the freedom and sort of the ability to sort of choose the way that we're going, which I enjoyed sort of as being a member of, you know, a SchoolShop. But at the same time, a lot of the burdens are not mine at this point in time, and I love that, right? So, you know, I trust sort of Rahul and Aditya to go out, like raise the money, like I don't have to deal with every little piece of it, right? And I really like that. To me, you know, I now that I'm here, like I can't imagine life any other way.
No, that's really good to hear, because I think what happens is when you're caught up in the mompreneurial bubble, you kind of just think that's the only way. So I think even with finding partners or the thoughts of perhaps, you know, giving control or even doing something else, it's something that doesn't really cross your mind. So it's nice to hear that perspective as well. So we're going to be throwing it open for questions soon, but I'd love you to give some tips on mompreneur to anybody out there who might be watching and might be wondering how to go about it or what to do.
I think you just have to trust what you are doing and just keep at it and just believe in your product and hard work. That's it. There's nothing else out there. So that should be, that is one. I'll keep thinking about the other two.
Sure. No, good.
So I think the first thing is, I would say, finding something that you're really passionate about, because it is taking a lot of precious time away from the other part of your life. I think secondly, I would say to prioritize and, you know that you're not going to be able to do everything that a stay-at-home mom does, and you're not going to be able to do everything that a working mom does, and be comfortable with that. And I think I would say thirdly, I would say that, you know, find people around you who can really support you. And I think if you count on those people and you find those right people, then that works.
Ruchi?
If you find something that you're passionate about, great, you're really lucky. Go for it, be extremely patient. It's not going to happen overnight. Also, I think as a mother, it's very important to let go, because we just hold on to so many things, and I used to be very anal about my cushions matching my things in the house, so now I don't care that much, because I really feel that my work and you know, my community or the work that I'm doing needs my time more than the cushions at home. So it's important as a mother to let go.
Super.
I'd say leverage extensively. I think we expect too much from ourselves, and the only way to keep at it, to be consistent, to be persistent, to have a venture is to, you know, leverage multiple people, multiple groups, multiple even entrepreneur networks, right? I've derived a lot of support from fellow entrepreneurs. So keep leveraging those networks, and secondly, just be persistent, and that's fine. But just keep going at it, and when you make it big, then people will talk about you. So
that's a really great point.
It's hard being like the fifth person, right? I'm just one man.
It can go either way. Either you can give us the grand finale, or you can sum it up.
But basically, the one thing I'll say is like take the plunge, right? At some point, I think you have to believe in yourself and sort of take the plunge. Nothing is irreversible, right? If it works, that's great, and I think you have to work hard to see it through. If it doesn't, like you said earlier, right? It's not because of necessity that you're doing it. You're doing it out of choice, and you can always go back to what you were doing before, or find something else to do, right? So don't overthink the decision, I think is what I would sort of say.
Great.
So I'm actually going to say something my father said to me when I was really young. Age was to not be a jack of all trades and to be a master of one. And I think I remembered that because early on in my career I got offers to do movie clothing and stuff, and I stayed away from it because I had a very clear focus that, you know, I wanted to be like, you know, a couture designer. I wanted to be a high-end, you know, clothing designer. So I think having blinkers on your eyes like a racehorse is with your vision, of course. I don't mean don't experiment with careers and all when you're finding your way. Once you've found your way, I think it's very important not to get distracted. So to me, these are my two things that I would say.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it brings me to, I guess, closing, and it makes me think that going back to each to their own, I think it's really important to define success and to understand that success means different things to different people. And the reason I say that is because, you know, you are really successful if you're a stay-home mom, and that's what gives you true joy and happiness. And you're equally successful if you're at the top of your corporate job, and if you're, you know, the most successful mompreneur and entrepreneur. I think it's really important to know yourself and know what success means to you and to the people perhaps who mean the most to you. So on that note, it's been really great, lots of fun. I personally learned a lot, and I think that's what mompreneur, as the word itself isn't defined, I think all these kind of things will probably help define it. So it was really great, and we'd love to have any questions, anything you'd like to say. Please go ahead.
So my question to all of you is, I know all of you talked about the flexibility you get, obviously as a father who loves spending time with his kids, and I know a couple of your husbands who've probably equally, if not more devoted. How do you, what are the frustrations that you feel when something happens, we get a call right now, and it's automatically assumed that the mother will go? It could be an Indian phenomena, it could be an international phenomena, but how do you balance the frustrations of if someone has to do something, it is accepted that the mother has to stop her venture while the father, whether it's a corporate job, anywhere else, is unable to do so?
No, I'm sorry. I just tell my husband he has to go. We have to.
Excellent.
I'm like,
I think becoming a mompreneur makes you independent, your husband independent, and your children independent, because they learn to do things, and you have to just
you have to
put your
break
foot down
the
and say,
barrier.
yeah,
Basically, we have to like just.
But I think again, and I keep veering towards this, and I'm not just trying to be diplomatic, but I really believe it's each to their own. Everyone's composition inside is different. I've had this discussion with my husband, and there have been times when we both had important things to do, and if I actually had to give a percentage, if we had to equate, you know, how many times I would like to be at that school activity as opposed to him, I don't know if it's nature or nurture or what it is, but I'm more inclined to go in that direction. So I think it's really important to actually know within, you know, it's not necessarily
you have husbands who don't have their own entrepreneurial ventures, which allows them the flexibility to do it. Let's assume you're working at private equity shops, for example, or a couple of it's more a stigma, right? So I think, how do you go tell your Indian boss that I need to go home for 3 hours in the afternoon or 2 hours to pick up my daughter or son from the bus stop? So you have the flexibility with the entrepreneurial side, but I'm just curious of others or friends that you know or people you know, how do you combat that, right? I don't think it's something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take a couple of years.
But I think this is why conversation.
I think people will slowly start getting comfortable with that, and I think one thing which didn't mention in the show is that all of us have really supportive spouses who pitch in a lot, right? So I think in the corporate world, probably this is still not a very okay practice, but I think as more and more dads make time for that, and it'll be, you know, something appreciated, and
it is happening more and more. I mean, you read every few days about, you know, not just corporates becoming more sensitive to this, but whether it's crashes in the organizations or whether it's flexi hours or whether there's, so I think this is happening, and I think that's why conversations like this can't just stay in one room, you know, they have to be written about, people have to.
Women talking and just have all the fathers, so the next time there are only men who are listening to this, because we've had many conversations like that where there have been more women in the room, so I would want one where there are women here talking about it and only men in the audience.
So I have to say something. So I work with predominantly like labor, right? So we have like, it's like the labor, so they are obviously like, you're talking about corporate India, but I'm talking about, let's go down to the grassroots level, and I'll tell you that we give equal amount of importance to like the master or the tailor will come and say, I have to take my wife to the doctor, or I have to, and that's equally important to us when the wife will say that I have to go home early to cook food for the family, because I think it's a personal day out. It has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. It's like you need personal time out, and like you said, of course you're taking the conversation out of this room, but the more we talk, and I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm just an optimistic about India, but I just feel like we're getting there.
Absolutely. I believe and I think a lot of founders and CEO men, who are sort of CXO positions are making time for family and children, which reflects in the company culture, right? So then people in the company are more comfortable doing the same thing.
I don't think they have as much of the luxury, frankly, because as we just said, we all have the choice. I know there are many days that my husband would rather be sitting at home with the kids, actually. So I think this is a very privileged space. This mompreneur thing, especially this kind of setup where we're clearly doing it because we're passionate about it. But I'm just looking at it from the perspective of an investor. It's also quite a dodgy space, because you don't know now, is that woman going to take the venture more seriously or going for the founders more seriously? I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I can see it from an outside perspective. It is hard to, and that's again why each person, I think, is what makes it different, unique. Other questions, please? Don't be shy.
So I have a question. So I think at Hopscotch we've had a very beautiful, virtuous relationship with mompreneurs, and it's happened very serendipitously. So I think what's happened is we've grown on the back of a lot of the hard work and sacrifices that mompreneurs have made, and I think likewise there's been a lot of mompreneurs who've been able to access the entire country, given some of the benefits of the platform. But we'd sort of love to understand, given the time constraints and the constant sacrifice that you're making, what are some of the things that technology has helped you to do, and what are the things that you believe technology has not helped you to do that there is still room for improvement for?
I think technology has been a huge empowerer. Personally, I could write my blog, I could shoot my show the day my babies were born, only because of technology. So I personally work a lot from home, and I'm always grateful for that. Having said that, we actually did an episode on our show on, the pros and cons of technology and what it does otherwise. And going back to sort of a negative, like say for someone like me, I think as Ruchi mentioned, you don't stop work. So I actually find that this is something I had wanted to ask, but I forgot about women. Do you think we can actually demarcate? Because when you're working like this, and when technology is such a big part of every minute and every day, and you can go and tweet and it's part of your work, when do you actually stop work? It becomes like a real, almost an issue, because I get my husband telling me that you're more of a workaholic than me, because at 1 a.m. you're like writing a blog, so it's I think technology is a huge empowerer, but you have to use it sensibly, I think.
Yeah, but technology has done wonders,
Absolutely.
Like say 10 years, 15 years back, it was like, if you're not working out, you're not living optimally. Now it's become like, if you're not tech savvy, you're not living your life optimally.
Absolutely. I don't think if there was no technology and I couldn't have connected a mom sitting in a small town India to someone sitting in New York, or even South Africa to in Singapore. So I think it's really changed a lot, and I think that's what I said, that we should really take advantage of this space.
And the negative, like you said about the time, which I'm totally guilty as charged.
All of us are, I think.
So I actually feel like one tip which I would like to give and take is that, maybe like 2 hours a day, you kind of switch it off and spend time, like even though I'm next to my son, I'm on my phone.
The phone, yeah.
So like I really do feel very guilty about it, and I want to, like, at least that's something I would, like, like you say, you want to do like yoga 3 times a week, or you want to drink 8 glasses of water. I would say like 2 hours a day without
Detox
technology.
yourself,
Detox is
so
something
Rahul, to your point very quickly, and this is touching upon what Tara said earlier as well, the one place technology can really help is in creating a more transparent financing system for these mompreneurs, right? So what has happened today is that, as you know, as a mompreneur, as Tara touched upon, right? I mean, you won't get venture funding easily. Also, debt funding is very tough to get. So in case platform like yours can create some sort of an informal or a formal with banks sort of credit rating system, credit scoring system, and therefore help these mompreneurs get access to financing easier, I think that'd be a big win. I don't know if you already do.
No, he's grinning like that, said, look as if there's something in the pipeline.
No, I think we're absolutely on it, and we're working on it. So I think we're
and we'd love to get involved then, because we have 65% of our businesses mompreneur led. So we'll talk about it.
Yeah. And I think what's really nice is that if you actually look in this room, not just on the panel, but in the room in general, everybody is from a different space. And I think that's really great because you have commerce, you have community, you have content. All the buzzwords in the whole VC space, but the point is that that's where collaboration is so important. So it's not about reinventing the wheel. Somebody told me, oh, if you want to grow, start Tara Sharma Show Toys. And I was like, or, start some kind of e-commerce platform. But I'm like, actually, I believe it's all about collaborating. You don't actually have to do that. And I think that's what's so great about moms, because they're all willing to share. And dads, I think now you should do one on dadpreneurs, because that's happening. Entrepreneurs who are balancing the act of being a dad.
We're still trying.
I was just curious how you see technology impacting how you raise your kids. And they're effectively our future consumers of tomorrow. And technology is accelerating in a very rapid pace. And you're seeing that sort of day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis, how you're raising your kids through it, be it social media, be it just the omnipresence of it. It's no longer a one-way medium now. You can interact with it at every second. So maybe talk a little bit through how you're thinking about that as you're raising your kids, and how that sort of applies to your businesses, as ultimately they're the consumers of tomorrow.
I think that's it's both a pro and like a fear, right, when I'm raising my child, because it's a very open world, very connected world, and it's something that my parents never thought about when they were bringing me up, and that's something that's like front and center sort of as you're bringing them up. And so I think that it's great because it builds connectivity. You get connected to people all across the world, right? Like you're exposed to a lot more than we ever were, I think, growing up. But I think, one of the things I've always had in my mind is, how do I teach them how to be safe, right? Like earlier it used to be, how do you be safe in the physical world? Now it's like, how are you safe in the social world? And how do you understand that any action you have now could be available for the world to see, 15 years, 20 years later, right? So I think that's something to be very sensitive about. And even at work, right, that's something for us to be very sensitive about, right? Everything that you're putting up, everything that you're doing, you have to be very careful that the person who's consuming it is, sometimes if we put up like nail paint or makeup, I kind of cringe, and I'm like, maybe that's not a space that you want to be doing, right? So those are some of the things I think to think about, which is to be very careful with what you're putting out, because there's a lot of ability for people to consume it. And, as you raise your children, that's something to keep in mind going forward.
And I want to add, as a parent and as a entrepreneur, I think what will happen in time, and I hope it does, is that as this space evolves, I think some kind of guidelines and rules, right, from the school level should start. Because now, for example, my son, he's 6, and everything they do is on the iPad. So even the school is encouraging it. Like every project is being done on the iPad. I mean, they're sending us presentations on as 6-year-old, So I'm hoping, and we're going to have these conversations in schools, obviously, that we're hoping that we will also start having how you teach etiquette, or you teach, being safe in the physical world, that they'll start putting these things as some kind of guide. Because see, this is when there was no internet laws, but then the internet came on, and then these internet laws started to come on, for example. So similarly now, because of it becoming such an integral part of our children, my son asked me once, when he went to Pizza Express, that what is that? It was a telephone. He had never seen a telephone, and I didn't even realize that. Like a black dial-in phone. He thought it was like an artifact or something. So I'm just saying, when a child has not seen something some technology, and this is it, they don't know that there's a world without an iPad or an iPhone or whatever.
But I find it very interesting. We did an episode on the show on kids and technology, and there's someone here who's on it who spoke. She's a psychologist, and she spoke about digital detox. And I think a lot of parents have this constant dilemma about how much is too much. You give some, you don't want them to lag behind, but at the same time you don't want to have too much. So I think most of us try and have rules where you can't use the iPad here, or you can't watch TV there or whatever, but at the same time we don't want anyone to lag behind. But I think what's really interesting is that my kids, they're 4 and 6, because they've never been restricted in terms of, we've never been harsh about no TV or no iPad. Honestly, they will choose kicking a ball over playing with the iPad. So I think it's actually possible that because there's so much exposure at this age, I actually think it's possible that kids won't be as attracted to it. We are the first generation of so excited by what's going on. They will be the consumers of tomorrow and stuff, but I'm not sure that it will be in the same way. It's just an interesting thought, because maybe it will flip. I don't know.
So something that I'd like to add add to that is, and because at preschool, because I run a preschool, and you can figure out very quickly who the iPad children are. I think for the younger children, I would say it's just best to keep those iPads and screens away, because you can figure out their motor skills are not developing, their attention spans are very short, and they're just looking for a very fast-paced world. So I think the impact that starts so young is not good for the basic development of a child. So I think later on in life, exposure and these things can be picked up really quickly. It's not rocket science to really work with an iPad or laptop or anything.
I think
right?
very instinctive also, right?
They're very instinctive. So I don't think children will miss out much if they are not given an iPad until they're 4 or 5. It's more important that they're able to do things that they're supposed to at that age from a basic development perspective.
I think for all of us moms, I think pretty much everyone will agree that it's a balance. I think you just have to find the balance that works, because there are times when, as you know, they do learn stuff as well. Like one of our sons really loves learning Spanish, and I think suddenly he'll spout out things which he has seen also on an iPad or whatever. So I think there's no doubt that it plays a big part, but I think it's about balancing it. And as I always say also, and I've been doing this show now for 5 years, and I keep saying nobody is an expert. I think we're all learning, and I think that's what makes it such fun, that none of us really have the answers. So I think we just have to help each other and learn from each other.
I am Anjali, and I run an organization called Back to the Front, which is for women at work. One thing which we commonly come across is aspiration deficit in women, especially in women. So that is something that we keep telling a lot of corporates also, that it is in various forms it may manifest, but also people who choose to move out on their own, they find a way to deal with aspiration deficit. But then they say that people like Tara also pointed out, that are they dodgy? Will this woman carry on? Will she make sure it will happen? So something that which will help us talk to a woman and say, don't be in that aspiration deficit mode. Come out, look at what the world is doing. And I'm sure, all of you are examples of making it work. So, rather than a question, I would say it will be great to have you also as, in fact, Tara and Ruchi, we've done a lot of work together in this space to say that, let's make it happen, build a community together to push more women in this whole, mompreneur space, because I think everybody is talented. At the same time, they need a way to deal with that deficit really. So, whatever you may be doing in your organization, I think it will be great if you can get more women on the bandwagon really.
Yeah, like Anjali started a great mentoring program, which is super. When she asked me to come and mentor, I said, I don't know, but because you have to have a direction, and I think that's what's interesting with mompreneurs. It's not like you are going to give tips on how to become a banker or what to do, or you know what I mean? Each story is so different, and the way it's happened is different, so it's an interesting space. I think everyone was very happy to be here for Hopscotch. Thank you all of you for coming. It's been really fun, and now don't forget to watch the Tara Sharma Show Hopscotch special coming soon. Thank you everyone. That was an absolutely amazing discussion. I think Tara's parenting powwows with Hopscotch was a huge hit. I hope you guys write in and let us know what you thought of it. An electric live audience which we've never had before, with none other than the co-founder of Facebook in our midst, Eduardo Saverin, and his lovely wife, and a fabulous audience. So Rahul, I look forward to doing more such Hopscotch Tara Sharma Show specials.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.